You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Gerald Celente, publisher of the Trends Journal. It's available online at TrendsJournal.com. He's speaking to us from historic Kingston, New York. Gerald, Happy New Year and welcome back.
Happy New Year. Thanks for having me on.
It doesn't look like much of a Happy New Year on the North American markets, does it? In fact, the markets anywhere around the planet.
Well, actually, this was our end-of-year forecast. If you go to our website, trendsresearch.com, and go to December 30th broadcast, just at the end of the year, our last broadcast of the year for Trends in the News, the headline was The Panic of 2016. And I've been on your show before, and I'm sure I mentioned it before. As of August 6th, we said that the markets were going to melt down, and we said it would happen by year's end. Well, for all intents and purposes, it did, because the market started to unravel right at the year's end. And this is just a continuation. And it's also one of our top trends, which we put out in early December for 2016. It's a global recession, and it's in front of everybody's eyes. All you have to do is look at the commodity prices, from oil to copper to iron ore, from soybeans to corn to wheat, you name it. They're in the levels now on average of 1999.
And, of course, the cost of living for Joe Average is not what it was back in 1999.
Of course not. Matter of fact, it's interesting you mentioned that, because median household income is actually below 1999 levels in the United States.
How did that happen?
Oh, it's the great sellout. You know, we all knew this was going to happen. Been writing about it in my books, Trends 2000, writing about it in the Trends Journal. And it was the sellout, the great sellout, that they sold our jobs out overseas. I'm sure you remember that famous debate back with Ross Perot and Al Gore, and he warned of that great sucking sound. And that's what happened. They made us believe that these manufacturing jobs weren't worth keeping, because they were going to be replaced with higher skill, higher paying positions in the, quote, knowledge economy. And that was the big lie. And now, of course, we have his service sector jobs. And when you look at those numbers, for example, that came out of the United States that everybody cheered last week of all the job growth, they're low-paying jobs. They're in ambulatory services. They're waiters, bartenders. You know, they're just doormen. You know, the averages wages are, look, the numbers came out. For the first time in modern history, the minority of people in the United States are now middle class.
Well, at the start of the new year, one of the first newscasts I heard, they said by noon today, the first full day of business, the average executive or boss of a company in North America has already made more money than their average worker will for the entire year. By noon.
It's called fascism. It's the merger of state and corporate powers. 4 words killed capitalism. It was called too big to fail. In other countries, they have different names for it. They call it austerity measures. They steal people's money to bail out banks and financiers that made bad bets. And that's, of course, the term that Mussolini called fascism, the merger of state and corporate powers. So it's not a revolving door of government and corporations going in and out. The corporations run the show. How much more proof does anybody have to have? Who was the head of the U.S. Treasury Secretary that gave us too big to fail under George W. Bush? Wasn't that Henry Paulson? Where did he come from? Goldman Sachs gang. Who was that slimy little lowlife of a man, Robert Rubin, under Bill Clinton's administration? Democrat, Republican, Bloods, Crips, it doesn't make any difference. They're both murderers and thieves. They steal our money in the names of too big to fail and start wars that kill millions in the names of freedom and democracy. Well, the one under Clinton was Robert Rubin, the man that deregulated the Glass-Steagall Act, put that into play under his term as U.S. Treasury Secretary. Where did little slimy, rotten, low-life Robert Rubin come from? Oh, the former CEO also of Goldman Sachs, wasn't he? Yes, he was. And where did he go afterwards? Well, because he did the dirty deal, he got to work for Citigroup, which before that, of course, was just Citibank, and that was Smith Barney and Travelers. But they merged under the end of the Glass-Steagall Act. And he made an estimated $150 million as an advisor. How about anybody call it bribes and payoffs? Who was the guy that was running the show up where you are, up there in Canada, before he went to the Bank of England? Connie. Yeah, Connie. That's the term we could use for carnival man. Con man. Yeah, where was he from? Goldman Sachs, now he's at the Bank of England. Who's the guy that's the head of the European Central Bank over there? Mario Draghi, low-life Draghi. Yeah, negative interest rate Draghi. We'll do anything we can, Draghi, to boost the equity markets. Where was he running? Well, he was running the European division of Goldman Sachs. Also the criminal that put in place bringing the Greeks into the Euro group when they weren't qualified for it. Who's the guy that's now the Prime Minister of Australia? Turnbull. Yeah, Turnbull, a Bull S. Yeah, Goldman Sachs. So anyway, it's clear. It's a takeover, and it's in front of everybody's eyes, but they don't want to call it what it is.
So, in other words, our politicians are just figureheads. Goldman Sachs is calling the shots.
Goldman Sachs is bankism. That was one of our top trends for 2015. And it says banks are running the show. The banks and the multinationals. And once upon a time, we had regulations that prohibited the bigs from owning everything. They put it in place, so the robber barons wouldn't rob everything from us. And then again, the low-life criminals that people vote for deregulated all those acts that allowed this to happen. Robertson-Patman Act, Sherman Antitrust Act, Clayton Antitrust Act. I mentioned Glass-Steagall and banking, one after another. Federal Communications Act. Look what's going on in the states. They call these things debates that they have with the presidential candidates. They're not debates. It's a game show. Beat the clock. You got 90 seconds to answer the question and 60 seconds for a response, a rebuttal. 30 to 60. We'll give you a little break in there. And look at the whole setup. And who's running it? 6 major corporations. Could you imagine? The corporations are in control of the debates. And according to reports in the New York Times and other papers, for instance on CNBC, they're getting $250,000 for a 30-second commercial so you could watch the presidential reality show. Brought to you by the corporations. 6 corporations own 90% of the media, thanks to Bill Slick Willie Clinton, who deregulated the Federal Communications Act in 1996. So everything's been given over to the bigs, and they turned most of the Western world into slavelandia. Guess they wanted to be like those communist Chinese that were taught to hate so much until they did business with them, so they could use their slave labor to get their products made cheaply and then mark up the prices and bring them home. So now you don't even have to go over to China. You could do it right here in the USSA.
Does the first week of trading in 2016 signal a trend for the rest of the year?
Yes, it's very clear. And it's very important also. It was the worst trading week for the Dow since in the history of it, going back over 100 years. You saw oil lose 10% in a week. And now, on Monday, you're looking at oil prices, down again some 5%. It's like 15% in a week. Look at the Shanghai Index. It was up like 60% in 2015, closed the year up about 9%, and now after just a week of trading, it's down 5%. Lost the 9+. You're looking at commodity prices, as I mentioned, hitting, 6-year lows, 10-year lows, 12-year lows, and oil, of course, is now at a 12-year low. So it's significant because of the reality of what's setting in. It's not the way to begin the new year. And regardless of all the hype and all the talk to pump it up, they're not going up very much. And you're watching the markets, the volatility of them continuing on. And they're blaming it on China. It's not China. It's a global slowdown. Yes, China's responsible for buying a lot of those raw materials, but it was a phony economy boosted by record low interest rates and quantitative easing. Whether it was coming from the United States, from the European Union, from Japan, with Abenomics, or with China whatever you want to call it, with that name that they can't make up, to trillions of yuan that they pumped into the system to first create the real estate bubble and then to create the stock bubble, the stock market bubble. Some 80% of the stocks traded in China are retail customers, people just gambling. And again, they put all these restrictions on. They were supposed to pull the one off where people that owned some 5% or were major shareholders in companies, when the market started to unravel last July, they had a 6-month moratorium on selling the stock. And they were going to lift it last Friday, and they didn't. That's how tenuous conditions are. And they're blaming the Chinese for being inept in manipulating their markets. It's out of control.
Well, everybody manipulates their markets. Why just
do.
Blame the Chinese?
I know. Well, they're blaming the Chinese for not being as good manipulators.
Yeah.
So they have the national team. Here we have the plunge protection team. What are they? It's like, what are they, the team? It's supposed to be capitalism. Again, goes back to fascism. The game is rigged. Oh no, we're a plunge protection team. We have circuit breakers. It's supposed to be a free market, but it's not. And the people that suffer are the people on the outside, because the big guys know when the plug is going to be pulled.
Oh, something like 30% of the trades in the past year were made by the CEOs who held all those stocks.
That's right.
They knew when to get out.
You got it.
What's new with the war trend?
Well, it's heating up, and as these commodity prices go down, all things are connected. You're going to see it really start heating up, particularly in the Middle East. And you listen to all the presidential candidates. I always love this line: "If only the women were in charge." I'm sick of it. It doesn't make a difference if you're a man or a woman, if you're black or white, what religion you practice. Crazy people come in all races, creeds, colors, and genders. So when you listen to, my campaign slogan is for in the United States for 2016, Trump or Clinton, Hitler or Hillary. I mean, Hillary Clinton, my God, did people forget Gaddafi has to go? Go to YouTube. Look at her being interviewed on CBS when they asked her, how does it feel? What did you feel like when you found out Gaddafi was murdered? And she said, we came, we saw, he died. They should have taken her away in a straitjacket. Anybody else they would have. They would be blasting that person. And as I say, warmongers, women, and militaristic men. Listen to Carly Fiorina, the woman running on the GOP platform. I'm going to show Putin I won't even talk to him. I'm going to build a 6th Fleet bigger right under his nose. I'm going to build missile defense systems. I'm going to say, man, she's really going to be busy working away, huh? Oh, you mean you're going to take our money to do this? Is that what you mean? And I'm going to put troops right on the border over. Oh, great, man. So you see where it's going. Everyone's talking about more war, not a peep about peace. And no one's talking about who caused this radical conditions. Couldn't be because the United States and its coalition of the killing killed well over 1 million people in Iraq and Afghanistan. Couldn't be that. No. Illegal wars. 2 illegal wars. Now, couldn't have anything to do. It couldn't have anything to do with overthrowing Gaddafi, a sovereign nation, and slaughtering some 30,000 people. And what a hypocrisy with Obama talking about gun control. How about drone control? How many people has he killed? Look at the numbers that came out. Just in 1 year, a report came out showing that the United States, under the Nobel Peace Prize winner, how about piece of crap prize? The United States dropped over 23,000 bombs on Muslim-majority countries, including Pakistan, Afghanistan, Yemen, Iraq, Somalia, Syria. And wonder why they hate us. I can't figure it out. You know what? I think we should put a commission together. And I think we should have a blue ribbon panel and to find out why they hate us. I can't figure it out.
Well, every drone strike, if they do get the intended target, usually kills anywhere between 50 and 100 other people.
The facts show that most drone strikes have killed innocent people, and they're killing, quote, suspected militants. Suspected? How about tried and convicted. No, we suspect them. That's good enough. Don't you know who we are? Yeah, I mean, if there was Hitler around, everybody would be screaming Heil Hitler. How about Heil Obama, Heil Cameron, Heil Merkel, Heil Holland? Hey, did you guys get you pull your planes out yet with your new prime minister?
Not yet.
Not yet. Another phony, huh? When they go, how come it takes so long? Was the trip too long to bring them home?
Maybe their GPS broke down.
Yeah, that could be it.
Yeah.
Or they ran out of gas.
Not at the prices they can pay now. Well, this dispute between Iran and Saudi Arabia, that looks very manufactured to boost the price of oil.
The Saudis, the mass murdering Saudis. Again, the great Arab allies, whether they behead 157 people last year, started off the new year beheading 47, and chose a prominent Shia cleric to also behead. Oh, that wasn't going to. No, that's bad. That was nice. Oh, and how about the war that the Saudis are waging against Yemen? And you saw the reports coming out, bombs away over our hospitals. This is like the fourth one already in Yemen. And the United States is supplying the armaments, cluster bombs, reconnaissance, intelligence, and air refueling for the Saudi coalition of the killing. So anybody that supports this, to me, is an accomplice to murder.
Well, Canada is still selling billions of dollars worth of arms to Saudi Arabia, even though they protested the executions.
What hypocrisy. What hypocrisy. That's like, you know what that's like? That's like somebody committing murder and you supplying the gun to do it. You think you'd be held guilty as an accomplice to the crime?
Technically.
That's right. Technically and morally. The Canadian government is technically and morally an accomplice to the crimes, just like the United States is. And the people that support it are also accomplices to it.
Are there any highlights in the ongoing presidential race?
You know, we came out with the forecast. You know, you remember our Spring Trends Journal, and the cover was the presidential reality show, Cowards, Liars, Freaks, and Fools. And that was before Donald Trump got into it. We had forecast Hillary Clinton to win, and we still stay with that. And the reason being is that the Republicans will alienate and have alienated a large segment of the women voters, and some 10 to 12% more women vote than men in elections in the United States. And when you look at the last two elections, the Democrats get between 10 to 12% more of those women votes. So just on those numbers alone, we're picking Hillary or Hitler, as I prefer to call her. Assad has to go. Gaddafi has to go. Her husband was a mass murderer too. Everybody forget Bosnia, Serbia, Yugoslavia. How about all those bombings over Iraq after all those years? You know, so I guess they got murder in their blood. So it looks like she'll be the dictator of America.
The Baltic Dry Index that reports what cargo ships are carrying, how many are carrying what. Well, now those ships are sitting empty. What kind of a trend is that telling us?
Well, it's big, and also when you look at the largest ships, they need some like $20,000 worth of cargo, payment to be profitable, and they're running at about $4,300. So they're losing money, and it's showing it's a global recession. It was one of our top trends for 2016 that we came out with over a month ago.
Does it look like gold and silver are going to come back to life?
Well, yes, because when you look at everything else going down, I mean, what's the one thing going up? Gold and silver. And I've been more bullish on gold and silver. It's the ultimate safe haven commodity. And that's, when you have all this destabilization, be it on geopolitics and economics, I mean, would you want to be holding the South African rand right now, or would you prefer a Brazilian real?
I've got a Canadian loonie. That's bad enough.
That's right. So would your Canadian loonie go down to, what is it, 70, 71?
70.
70. So you lost over 30, it was over the dollar.
It was $1.10 a few years ago.
Right. So what would you rather be holding, loonies or gold? Even though gold prices have gone down.
Well, in Canadian dollars, they've gone up $500.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And that's why I said about having real or rand. I mean, with the rand knocked off, some 9% in one day yesterday, on Monday. No, you're looking at very volatile situation. and there's nothing there to reverse it. And then the other thing that's really important to understand is that the governments have used their banks have played all their cards already with their zero interest rate policy and quantitative easing. What do they do for a sideshow? Oh, negative interest rates? That's not going to make a big difference. So it's going to be one terrible outcome after another. And we don't see any recovery, and this is a time to prepare, prevail, to survive. And as I say, I don't give financial advice. I tell people, as far as speaking only for myself, I prepare for the worst. If the worst doesn't happen, I lost nothing. But if the worst does happen and I didn't prepare, I could lose everything. And when you put the geopolitics together, I mean, you look at these numbers that are coming down on the currencies. I mean, this parallels in many ways even worse than the currency crisis back in the late 90s. So all of a sudden, one day you wake up wherever you live, and because of a quote terrorist strike or a financial crisis, we're calling a bank holiday, and they'll devalue your currency.
In Europe,
that's after you're able to get it out.
In Europe, there's more talk that there might be bank bail-ins and capital is fleeing Italy, Spain, France. Are the German banks safe from this?
No, because the German banks are the ones that they were responsible for the big bailout, stealing the money from the Greek people. They're the ones that made the worst bets over there. Commerce Bank, a whole load of them. And no, they're very overextended. So there's, to me, again, and the bail-ins are already happening. It happened with the Italian banks already. People are committing suicide. They're losing everything. And again, bankism, bail-ins, who made this stuff up? I'll tell you who, criminals. When are people going to have the courage to call a spade a spade? They're criminals. They're murderers and thieves. But don't forget to salute them when they walk out. Call them your president, prime minister, and chancellor. Yeah, roll out the red carpet. Yeah, put out the military bands. Everybody, bow down to the king and the queen. They're murderers and thieves, and the people don't have the courage to stand up. They bow down and salute and applaud them and vote for them.
It seems that manipulation has been responsible for keeping gold and silver artificially low. Will the same kind of manipulation take place to boost the prices?
I think what's going to happen is the manipulation can only run for so long. With people pulling their money out of the markets like this and currencies collapsing, there's just so much they're going to be able to do to stop the rise of gold prices. And I believe they'll take dramatic steps to stop the sale of gold. And they may even go so far as confiscation in some countries. Because gold is the ultimate, to me, safe haven commodity. I've said it over and over again. And as you well know, I've been saying that the bottom of gold is just about where it is since gold began to unravel in late 2011. Because it costs more than this to get it out of the ground. And unlike oil and copper and iron ore and other coal and other commodities where companies, and we're talking about the shipping, where they'll do anything just to bring in some bucks even though they're losing money, doesn't happen with gold. So I believe that no matter what they try to do, they're not going to be successful in bringing down the price of gold over the long term. And I see gold, when it does go up, it's going to spike up.
Is U.S. real estate a safe investment? Or even real estate here in Vancouver where the prices have gone up more than 30% in a year?
What I've found out over the years is that even when prices go down in hot markets, they rebound. So you may have a downturn, but then again, when you look at Vancouver and you look at all the Asian money flowing in, and you're going to see more and more of that as more and more of that money it's already, you're seeing the outflows coming out of Asia, particularly China, and you're going to start seeing it coming out of Malaysia, Singapore, and in bigger numbers as well, and heading west. So I think the markets will go down, but over a longer period of time, several years, they'll bounce back and even get stronger. I've noticed that, being a New York City guy, I would have thought that, the prices would never reach where they are. I mean, I could have bought apartments down in Charles Street in the West Village, $88,000 back in the early 90s, and now they're going for over $1 million. So will they go down? Yeah, they may go down maybe a couple $100,000, but still far beyond where they were. And again, you see a big urbanization trend as well. So the hot cities will remain hot, but they will definitely, I believe, and that's what we're forecasting, be a dramatic downturn. And so as far as investing in real estate, I invest in what I love, and I love where I am in Colonial Kingston, and I buy pre-Revolutionary War stone buildings. So, the value to me is what they mean to me and the beauty of what they are.
And obviously, Gerald, they were built to last. If you're buying them and trading them today.
Oh, these ugly glass things they're putting up are monstrosities, my God. There's no style, no grace, no elegance. It's very, I guess it's reminiscent of the whole stylist culture. The old school is gone, and now they just put up these tasteless pieces of glass and steel. So yeah, and again, I know I'm only speaking for myself. I'm not a real estate flipper. I buy it and keep it and build on it.
If the bond bubble bursts, what would be the immediate effect on interest rates?
Oh, they're gonna. It's hard to say, but the bond bubble is bursting. I mean, you're looking. You look at let's go back to energy, and you see the huge hit it's taking. So when you go just look at energy and mining stock, and how much money flowed into junk bonds with zero interest rate policy, and how much of that money also flowed into the emerging markets to get some money back when you had all this cheap dough floating out there. So just in the United States, for example, when you put the mining sector and energy sectors together and look at the junk bond market, you're looking almost 20% of the junk bonds are in those sectors. And now these companies are going belly up. Big coal company just filed for Chapter 11 on Monday here in the States. So you're going to start seeing more with all of this shale and tar sands and all the money that went into those bonds as people were seeking higher interest rates because of zero interest rate policy. No, that's good. The bond bubble is going to be the bubble, I believe, that's going to collapse the markets.
Gerald, how can people find out more about the Trends Journal?
Go to trendsresearch.com, trendsresearch.com, and I could say to you it's the only place where you're going to read history before it happens. I've been doing this now, Jim, since 1980. This is the first year I ever remember in my career that the media was so negligent in looking ahead to see what was going to happen as we were moving into the new year. All they did is look at the past. As the markets unraveled last week, pick up the New York Times. Even pick up the Wall Street Journal on the weekend edition. And Jim, you'll see that in the New York Times, the worst opening of the stock market in the history of the United States was buried in the business section on page B6, down the left-hand bottom, just as though it was another Saturday report of what happened in the markets that week. And when you look at the Wall Street Journal, yet they had a little headline up there that the markets had a dim, quote, dim week. Dim. And under it was a big picture of some madman shooting a cop in Philadelphia or Pennsylvania somewhere. That was where your eye hit. The coverage was moderate. So the Trends Journal is the only place where you're going to see history before it happens. Everybody's afraid of the future.
Why?
Because they see what it is and they don't want to call it what it is. They're little boys and girls, just like I said, that we have nations of cowards that are afraid to stand up and look at the truth. Rather, they'll believe they're liars and what they've been led to believe. So rather than saying that things are bad, you listen to the media. Turn on the prostitute media. They're whores on the business channels. It's a buying opportunity, I tell you. Anybody that talks about a decline in the economy, they don't want to hear from you. You're a gloom and doomer. That's the childish language that they use. That's like going to a doctor and the doctor diagnosing someone with a chronic degenerative disease, and you're calling the doctor a gloom and doomer. We have a chronic degenerative economy run by degenerate people in government and in banking.
Is there anybody out there who's got it right?
The only one that I would have voted for, and of course he's not running this year, his son is, but I wouldn't vote for him, was Ron Paul. He's the only person of substance and integrity and morality that I saw out there. And of course, we held Occupy Peace here in Colonial Kingston this past September, and we had Ralph Nader here. He was the other guy I voted for. Other than him, Nobody else other than those two. The rest, again, they're members of the Bloods and the Crips. People rather call them Republicans and Democrats. They're murderers and thieves. Again, the facts are there. They murder people by the millions around the world in the name of freedom and democracy and humanitarian missions, and drones away and bombs away, and they steal our money in the name of too big to fail, loan guarantees, tax breaks, and other inside deals. So as long as you have the murderers and thieves running your government, how could any thinking human being actually believe and repeat the words, "I'm voting for a lesser of two evils"? Evil is evil. You're going to have a relationship with a lesser of two evils. You're going to have a business relationship, a sexual relationship, a friendship. How moronic, how disgusting that people would lack the morality within themselves to vote for a lesser of two evils. And that's what they're used to doing.
Or as Neil Young said in his song, "Keep on Rocking in the Free World, a kinder, gentler machine gun hand."
Yep.
It doesn't matter if you paint the machine gun pink or in pretty colors. It's still killing people.
That's right. So we need a new way. And it's happening over in Spain. It's happening in Italy. You know, their movements are happening with the Podemos party and again, will they sell out? It looked like they might too, as Syriza did in Greece. And of course, there's the Five-Star Movement in Italy. And then again, you're going to start this. And again, this is old news to us. This huge anti-immigration and refugee crisis. There's going to be a huge backlash and more nationalism. So, and I'm not opposed to nationalism, by the way, because I consider myself an economic patriot. I want to put America first. I couldn't be, as I say, my blood is Italian, but my heart's American. I can never be me if I was born in back in Vico Quince, you know. And I would have never had the freedom to express myself and be who I am, like I am over here. So I want my country first, and I'm also a believer in the great things, and I know the atrocities that are committed and have been committed and are still being committed by this country. But there were great things too. That's why our Constitution was a model for all countries that wanted to rise to higher levels, as well as our Bill of Rights and many other wonderful things that made this the land of opportunity. So I'm an economic patriot. I want to buy American, grow American, and live American, but in the principles, again, of a higher level of morality, not the ones that they're slaughtering people with.
Gerald, thanks a lot for chatting with us.
Thanks for having me on, Jim. All the best.
My guest has been Gerald Celente, publisher of the Trends Journal. You can find it at trendsjournal.com. You're listening to HowStreet.com radio. Find us on Twitter at Talk Digital Net. Our popular YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Comments about the show can be sent to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.